What's up everybody, how are y'all today? I'm Anthony, you are watching Palmetto Prepared. Today I wanted to have a little bit more of a serious conversation than I usually do. It's not going to be a how-to, it's just going to be a simple sit-down conversation format. And we're going to talk about romanticizing SHTF scenarios. When it comes down to romanticizing something, all I'm basically saying is you're thinking about all the good stuff but not the bad stuff. And I think we all have our tendencies to do that. I've been known to, a lot of people romanticize like the Native American cultures, that they were just peaceful, earth-loving, sustainable, everything was all hunky-dory. But in reality, when you really look back at it, like a lot of the tribes were bloodthirsty. Look at the Mayans and the Aztecs, human sacrifice, like that stuff existed. So we can't gloss over that fact. It's nice to be able to go back and think, oh, they were sustainable, we should be living in an earth in a sustainable way like that. But in reality, intertribal conflict was very, very popular and common. So you can't sit back and put on your romanticizing fantasy goggles in an SHTF scenario. And I think that's what a lot of people are guilty of doing. A lot of bigger channels, I've seen it quite often, especially when it comes down to the new civil war that everybody's talking about. So let's just, take off our gloves, metaphorically, and actually have a conversation about what that actually means. When you're, actually romanticizing certain events, certain scenarios, you're thinking about all the good and none of the bad. Like, how's that going to affect your everyday life? You do realize that by having a new civil war, you're basically saying you are encouraging the death of your fellow citizens. Like, you realize that. So by saying, hey, yeah, let's do it. Let's fight for liberty. And I'm on your side. Don't get me wrong. I love liberty. But there's other ways to do it besides actually having a civil war. That should be like a last-ditch scenario. So there's things out there. There's a lot of stuff out there that a lot of people take for granted, I guess you could say, that would go away along with everyday things. Like, so let's just say there is a civil war or an SHTF scenario, and if you read a lot of prepper fiction, but I like to read nonfiction, but if you read like prepper fiction, you'll see there's always that one character that's got the answers to everything. That's really like a jack of all trades, a master at everything, and nothing bad seems to happen. They really do have the answers. And a lot of writers like to put themselves in that scenario, like they have it, everything all figured out, like they're good at it all. But in reality, that doesn't happen. And I think when it comes down to our thought processes, we think the same thing. So you have to think about everyday things that are going to get harder in a SHTF scenario. So something as simple as gathering water. Like if you live in the United States or Canada, you have the convenience of basically having clean water everywhere. If you go into town, multiple places have water fountains. If you are at home, you can turn on the faucet and congratulations. You have clean water, whether that be well water or city water. It's clean. You don't have to be like in third world countries. Now, I've been to third world countries. I've been to places in Morocco where people had to travel in town to one filling station to fill up their jugs and walk back home. So imagine you live 2 miles outside of town and your entire water for your house is predicated on the fact that one person's got to take 2 5-gallon buckets on a shoulder harness, basically, and go fill them up. That's 80 pounds of water that you have to walk back, however far it is from town. And then you got to clean that water. So something as simple as getting clean water is now going to be difficult. Same thing when it comes to medical. Like, penicillin wasn't invented or discovered until, 1928? And it wasn't practically used until 1942. So diseases like meningitis and pneumonia and heck, venereal disease, look at Al Capone, were almost death sentences. You either go crazy, you lose your hearing like Beethoven, or you die from pneumonia. So these are common things that you would take down a lot of the population because we didn't have a way to fight that. Now we have antibiotics. Well, what happens if the power goes out and you can't make those anymore? Small things are going to start taking a lot of lives. I mean, heck, I can walk outside, walk through the woods, get a scratch on my arm, and it gets septic, and next thing I get an infection. And I'm in serious trouble without antibiotics. Like, that's what you're really wishing for if you fantasize about having this SHTF scenario. Same thing with a whole bunch of deadly diseases. Like, if everybody's shoveled in a population center, like some of these diseases that were wiped out can come back. I mean, we have an immigration issue where diseases are making a comeback. I mean, measles have made a comeback. Smallpox, polio, that stuff still exists throughout the world. It may be wiped out in the United States, but it still exists, and they can make a comeback. people aren't vaccinated for polio anymore because it's not popular here. It still exists. And hell, they just had two cases of the Black Death in China. Like, things that wiped out massive amounts of the population can make a comeback like this if our way of living stops right now. Now, something I really wanted to mention, and I think it gets overlooked a lot, is there's a lot of people out there, myself included, who are overconfident and arrogant to a point at some of their abilities because they've done it for so long, or they've read about it. I mean, heck, there's people out there that read about things and watch a video on it and think they can do it. So when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, if you really want to get down to the brass tacks of it all, can you start a fire when it's wet? Like, can you process water without a flame? Certain things that you might have to do if there is a grid down scenario or civil war or whatever, SHTF scenario you can think about. Like, some of these things can happen. Are you ready for that? So by fantasizing about that, by fantasizing, hey, we can finally cull the population that doesn't deserve to be alive, or we can get rid of those that are just dragging everybody in society down, like, that may be the positive side of what you're thinking about. But the negatives are clean water, what are you going to do with your sewage, can you bathe, sanitation, disease, all the things that we haven't had to deal with in the last 100 years are going to come back. They don't just go away. Are you ready for that? And I think that question in and of itself is probably the most important part of this video that I can get out. So really sit back. Some of those channels, I hope they're watching, they probably aren't. But if they are watching, just consider what you're asking for. Consider that if we do have a civil war, you will be fighting people of your own country, your own citizens, potentially your neighbor. Are you prepared for that? Are you prepared to go without having power? Because guess what? If the power goes out for like a hard rainstorm, the power's probably going to go out during a civil war too. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to go long times without having medical assistance? Are you ready to go at long times without having the basic conveniences? You're not going to be able to get into your car or truck and drive to the store. Can you be prepared for that? And that's the main thing I wanted to hit here. There's a lot of things, a lot of small stuff, a lot of little details that people seem to forget about. So when they fantasize and romanticize these scenarios, thinking that of all the good things that are going to happen, they forget about all the realistic things that are going to happen. So that is the point of this whole video. If you learned something from this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you agree or disagree, tell me why down below in the comment section. I really want to get this dialogue going, or make a VR. It's cool. But don't just give me a thumbs down and not tell me why. But other than that, I hope y'all have a fantastic weekend, and I'll catch y'all later.